Here's Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent. Our main story for you this morning. After decades of campaigning, thousands of people impacted by what's been called the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS will finally get to see the results of a public inquiry today. Around 33,000 people were infected with HIV or hepatitis from contaminated blood products in the 1970s and 80s. Up to 5,000 people with the blood clotting disorder haemophilia were infected with hepatitis C, while an additional 1,250 were also infected with HIV. A second group of patients were given contaminated blood in the form of transfusions after childbirth, surgery or other medical treatment. The inquiry estimates that around 27,000 people were infected with hepatitis C and up to 100 were infected with HIV. Just under 3,000 people have died as a result, while others are still living with the ongoing side effects of infection. Well, the public inquiry into what happened launched in 2017, chaired by former Judge Sir Brian Langstaff. It was due to be published last year, but was delayed as a result of the sheer scale of the information. Our reporter Fiona Lambden has been to meet some of those fighting for justice.
Oh, look what Daddy's got. Oh.
He was probably the proudest dad you've ever met. He would brag about us so much. He just had such a passion and love for his family. We were his world.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful childhood.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful family life.
It was amazing.
I was in this bubble, and that bubble burst, and I lost my family that day. The nature of how he died tore us apart.
We were all trying to be brave for each other. You see families that are together now, the family unit is just gone.
Just 2 months after Gay and Peter were married, he was in a serious car crash and needed a blood transfusion. His family now know this blood was contaminated. And for the next 26 years, Peter seemed well, until one day, without any warning, he collapsed.
He was cutting the lawn, and then all of a sudden he was just lying on the floor. So I took him to the doctor. They sent him straight down to hospital, and they told us, and it sounds silly, but they said he's got hep C. And we were sort of pleased because we thought, well, you know, what's been happening to him? But we didn't realise how devastating that illness was. I don't think any of us realised that he was actually going to die at that stage.
I had no idea. Like
no.
His
I thought he was going to get through.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just 4 months after being diagnosed, a few days after Christmas, Peter died. He was 53.
I remember he was delirious, which I now know is signs of severe infection. My father was very brave. I said goodbye to him. I didn't know
with Kalina
he was that ill. I just saw him get in the car, but I had a weird gut feeling, and I just said, Dad, sorry. I said, I love you. I love you, Dad, and then watched him go off in the car with Mum, and that was the last time I saw him.
I'm on my own. I feel like I'm walking the earth on my own now. My family's gone. I come from a big family and I've lost them all.
Chris and his 2 brothers, Gary and Kelvin, were haemophiliacs. As children, all 3 were given contaminated blood products. Gary and Kelvin contracted HIV and hepatitis C.
I got really down and depressed, thinking that when I hit 30, I'm going to die. I've seen both of my brothers die in their 30s. I looked up to my 2 brothers and I knew we was haemophilias, so I just assumed because I was as well, the same thing was going to happen to me.
Gary died from AIDS, Kelvin from a failed liver transplant.
And you had to watch both your brothers deteriorate.
Me and Kelvin were really close, and he was on a life support machine and he'd not long had the liver transplant, and he was jaundiced. He was proper yellow. I think I spent the whole hour holding his hand, looking away from him, just crying. I couldn't look at him.
Chris is now halfway through treatment for hepatitis C.
Cast a shadow over my life. It did change my life. I was scared to get close to partners. I didn't have any of my own kids because I was scared I was going to infect them.
And that's huge, isn't it?
It is. Well, I've lost out on a family.
I hope that your Father's Day present.
I've been speaking to a lot of people that have had the chance. They got hep C, they've been cured, they were told. We were never told, and it makes me so angry. He shouldn't have been given it. But the next stage would be, you've got hep C, Peter, let's get you treated.
His death could have been prevented.
You've given someone a death sentence. Not only have you done that, but you've not admitted it. The injustice of it is heart-wrenching, and it eats away at me every single day. I was 18 when he died. I'm a completely different person now, and my father doesn't know me. He doesn't know who I am now, what I've achieved. He doesn't know my children. And
Your marriage, your wedding,
yeah,
everything.
all it would have taken was a phone call to save someone's life.
The memories of two families, of the 30,000 people who were infected with that blood, contaminated blood. And today we get the inquiry's final report. And we can speak now to Danny Holliday, who's part of the legal team representing 1,500 of the victims of the infected blood scandal. Good morning to you, Danny. Thank you for joining us from outside the place where the report will be published in the hours ahead. Can you just explain how important is this moment, this report, for your clients?
It's incredibly important to our clients and to the community as a whole, who have fought for 40 years to get to the truth of what happened and who knew what and what the risks were.
Why? What are they hoping to see and find out in those pages that they'll get today?
I think they're hoping to find out the definitive history as found by the judge, and to find out what was known about the risks of viruses in blood and the risks of mixing a lot of blood together, and once those risks emerged, what steps were taken by the Department of Health and the relevant people.
What sort of size of report are you expecting? I mean, there's been months and months of preliminary discussion and debate and questioning. What kind of format are you expecting it to take today?
We understand that it's only the first 2 volumes of the report will actually be printed on paper, and the rest of the report will be available as an electronic document. So that should give you an idea as to how enormous the report is likely to be.
And I know that this inquiry is something that the families have wanted and campaigned for, demanded for many years. In terms of what's in it, I mean, how difficult has it been, this whole process for them, knowing that this has been going on, some of them being called to give evidence, then getting headlines in the papers? I mean, talk me through the inquiry from their perspective.
It's been incredibly difficult for a lot of our clients to have to relive and revisit trauma from many decades ago. But also it's been very cathartic for many of them to feel that they've had Sir Brian head up this inquiry and that he's listened to them. And for so many decades they've just felt that they hadn't been listened to. They've been lied to by government. The records have been covered up. And part of the process was Sir Brian saying, I want to hear from you, I want to hear your stories. And that's made a huge difference to certainly to our clients.
Yeah, we've just seen some pictures now of a vigil that took place outside Parliament, not far from where you are now. Last night, remembering some of those victims who are no longer here, the people who can't speak for themselves because they've passed away, and there are deaths every week, aren't there?
There are. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I understand it's between two and four a week. And yeah, there are estates of people who've died 35, 40 years ago. So sorting all of that out once a compensation scheme is set up is going to be complex.
Compensation is something that I wanted to ask you about, because we expect some sort of announcement from the government today and maybe more detail tomorrow. What is it that your clients want to hear on compensation?
I don't think they want to hear very much at all on compensation today. I think the majority of them want the focus to be on the report and the story that the report is telling. There is time in the following week and in the next few days to discuss compensation, and I don't think today is really necessarily the right day for the government to be making any significant announcements on it.
OK, well, look, Danny Holliday, thank you so much for joining us this morning ahead of the publication from London. We'll speak to you again, I'm sure. The publication happens at about 12:30, doesn't it, lunchtime today? Then we're expecting some sort of statement from Rishi Sunak, probably in Parliament later in the afternoon. So